Those of you who know me know that in many ways I've lived the unexpected life. Growing up in Brooklyn, Midwood, in a traditional community that I left to go to college, which was unheard of. My friends stayed home and got married at 18, 19. And then to become a rabbi, which was even, just unimaginable. But by the time I graduated from rabbinical school and got married, I thought all the unexpected life stuff was done. And all I wanted to do was live a normal life. It didn't happen. I thought my children would go to Jewish schools and then the best colleges, and that would launch them into a life of accomplishment. But the reality of my family turned out to be very different. 2 of our children have disabilities. My oldest child, who's now 26, has developmental disabilities, and I'm grateful that she's able to live and work independently with support. Our son, 23, diagnosed with autism, had a severe regression at age 6, and lost the capacity to speak. He now lives in a residential school with round-the-clock oversight. Our 3rd child is neurotypical. I won't lie to you, this is not what I dreamed of when I dreamed of having a family. But there's something about the experience of having children with disabilities that has helped me discover my own humanity. A ground of identity that is stronger than anything I had previously known. Let me explain. Before my children's disabilities became apparent, I was much more concerned with a specific type of status. My own and my family's status were bound up in achievement, intellect, and professional identity. But given my children's limitations, these status markers were no longer available to me in the same way. I went through a period of grief when I realized, what my family was as opposed to what I expected them to be, eventually coming to terms with who my children are, as opposed to who I wish they were. And I came out of that process on the other side, experiencing myself as more fully human. I now feel grounded in a sense of being human that I share with all my children and with all other humans. And it's not, to tell the truth, that those other markers of identity are no longer important to me, but the core of my identity is rooted unshakably in being human. And as a result, I experience life very differently. It feels like, as opposed to always trying to prove my worth, I only now try to prove it about half the time. No, I'm kidding. Right now, no. This Shabbat, as I mentioned earlier, we start a new book of the Torah, Vayikra, Leviticus. It's smack in the middle of the Torah, the 3rd book out of 5. And one could say it's the heart of the Torah. But suddenly, we're in very different territory, right? Genesis, Exodus, exciting, big stories about dysfunctional families and lots of drama, even violence. Exodus, a big national drama of, enslavement and liberation, and then building a Mishkan. And now, endless details of sacrifices. Purity, impurity, holiness, the lack thereof. Also a holiness code right in the middle of the book, teaching us what it means to be moral human beings. But it doesn't make for exciting reading. But there's something, and you could see now that I'm really taken this year with the start of the book. The beginning of the book has some instructions about what it means to be a human being that are really profound and surprising, because the book is very particularistic, right? It's really about what Israel needs to do to navigate God's presence and achieve holiness and purity. But there's something at the beginning of the book that I want to share with you. First, as I mentioned before, Vayikra el Moshe, right? The first words of the book, and he called to Moshe. So it's that call to a human being that hopefully we all hear, but here the subject of who calls is not there, right? So it kind of leaves us with a teaching of, that call being omnidirectional, not coming from one source. The second lesson lies in verse 2. It says, Daber el b'nei Israel va'amarta alehem, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, and this is God addressing Moshe, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Adonai, a human being who, for lack of a better word, who sacrifices from amongst them a sacrifice to God, to Adonai. First of all, the verse uses the word Adam. It could have easily said Ish, or one of Bnei Israel, one of the children of Israel. Ish means person, but it specifically says Adam, meaning it's a teaching about what it is to be human, right? In Genesis, when God creates human beings, that very word is used. And that word, Adam, is very much related to Adamah, ground, but it also brings to mind that we were created in the divine image. So here, Vayikra opens telling us that what a human being does is a human being wants to draw near to God, because the korban and lahagriv are both of them have the roots to draw closer. And the way we draw closer is we bring sacrifices, we offer of ourselves. To rephrase Descartes here, I give, therefore I am, right? And the book is so much about giving, like what we give when we're happy, what we give when we think we've sinned, what we give when we've unintentionally sinned, right? There's an offering, there's a sacrifice for almost, every state of human being, including holidays. I think this grounding of being human and giving as opposed to taking is really countercultural for us. In Western society, we're so focused on, what do I need to do in my life to get as much as I can, as opposed to give as much as I can, right? As opposed to the focus being on contributions. There's so much focus on, beauty, success, wealth. In fact, there are industries that are built up around all of these, about how to get all of these in our lives, as opposed to understanding that what really is primary about being human is the ability to give, is the ability to contribute, is the ability to come close through giving. But there's something else in this verse which is interesting. It says, Atam ki yakriv mikem korban l'Adonai. A person who sacrifices, it can be translated, of yourselves, a sacrifice to Adonai, to God, and then the animals are mentioned. So it seems like what it's teaching us is what's primary is that we offer of ourselves, right? It's not the animal, it's not the grain, it's what are we offering? And Jewish tradition really picks this up and talks about sacrifice as being transmuted into tefillah, into words, into the practices of our heart, into study. All the things that we need to do to lekarev, to come close. So I think that as specific and particular as this book is, it really does teach us something about you being human and being grounded in being, a human being created in the image of God. I think as someone who's somewhat shifted from one self-identity to another, I think it's not easy, given all the messages that we have in our society, to really understand that we're full human beings and not to sort of always have to prove ourselves to ourselves and to one another, and not to always have to legitimate ourselves in some way or another. But this Torah, right, from the beginning, and this book right here in Leviticus calls upon us to be human, to be more fully human. And I think, and with Pesach coming up, it's worth remembering that that understanding is really liberating. It can be really liberating. And at this moment in time, in these times of treachery and danger, and I feel it with my own children, they will depend on Medicaid if it's still around for the rest of their lives. And it may not be around. So my husband and I are now living, in fear. I think in these times that the less we spend time worrying about our own self-worth, and the more we figure out what each of us can give to help, to help one another, to help whoever we can at this time, is really crucial. So I want to bless all of us that we understand that we were created in the image of God, whatever that means to any one of us, right? Whatever your understanding of God is, in all our vulnerability, in all our brokenness, and in all our splendor. And may we respond to the call of these times with being fully human.